So what's going on guys, Kids here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 best and most overpowered builds in Once Human. So for every single build I will show you what weapons and armor set you wanna get. Then I will explain every single mod and show you the best cradle upgrades and deviants to use. And then lastly, we will take a closer look at the gameplay, so you would know the reason behind every single build choice and what exactly will give us this insane damage and much more. If this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first one, which is the best one-shot sniper build. This sniper setup got his name from being able to get insanely high crit damage and pretty much one-shotting anyone you see. This build will work for both PVE and PvP, as well as fighting solo bosses. So let's start off with the weapons. And we are going to be using the AWS 338 Bingo Sniper Rifle. This is currently one of the easiest and best snipers to use, that has insane damage. As for accessories, so for muzzle we will be using the large break, then for the optic we have the large optic sight, then for the magazine we have the tactical SR mag, and for ammo we have the tungsten SR ammo. And finally for our best mod, we have the recover mark, which when we killed marked enemies, we will recover 50% HP and 25% stamina, which is very useful when you shoot while moving. Then for our second weapon, we have the D50 Wildfire pistol, that also will be dealing insane damage, but it's meant more for close range fights. And finally, for the third melee weapon, we will be using the stun baton with the recover marked mod, that the same as the sniper will give us 50% HP and 25% stamina. Then next up we have the armor, and we will be using the boots on the ground with the slow and steady precision mod. Then the falcon gloves with the crit boost mod, which is very important because it will give us a massive crit rate boost, and for this build we are trying to stack as much crit as possible. Then next up we have the falcon hat with the first move advantage mod, and as you can see we have the 4 falcon set piece, so we will get even more set effects, like the more crit damage, reduced rolling stamina cost, and our crit is increased when our stamina is over 90%. Then we have the falcon jacket with the head guard mod, and finally the heavy duty mask with the targeted strike precision mod. And don't forget guys, the main part you need to get for this build to work is the 4-piece falcon gear. One more massive thing that we need to use specifically are the cradle upgrades, and on the right side you can see all of them that I use, but the most important ones are the tactical combo, which gives us 25% damage for 4 seconds after switching or reloading a weapon. Then the first round blast, that after reloading gives us 25% instant damage for 4 seconds. Then sprint, that gives us 5% movement speed and reduces running cost by 15%. Then deadly combo, that after hitting enemy weak points, our bullets will get a 25% damage increase for the next 3 seconds. Then the bounty hunter, which after killing enemies you marked, our weapon yet again gets increased damage by 25%, which will last for massive 15 seconds. And lastly, we have the long range enhancement, that gives us 25% damage when we hold our sniper rifle. Then now let's take a look at the best deviant, and as there are many choices, so this is more of a personal preference. I prefer the Zero Purifier, because he will do a bunch of damage, attack and move automatically to the enemy direction, and this will also give us the teleportation ability as melee attacks, so this is very useful. And finally, the choice of food is again up to each player. I really like the canned lunch meat, because to make it is super easy and it will boost our max HP by 10%. But of course, if you want to maximize everything to the brim, then you can go with the damage increasing food, or anything else depending on what you are specifically fighting. So in a quick summary, if you want to use an insanely high damage sniper build that will one-shot and destroy bosses in just a second or two, then this is the one for you. So then moving over to the second setup, which is the shrapnel build. And unlike other builds that utilize set pieces and refilling ammo, for this one we will specifically focus only on the highest DPS possible without having the best insane gear. So with our build we will be doing insane damage for both our main and second weapon, and we will just switch them depending on who we are fighting. So now let's start with the weapons, and we are going to be using the SOCR, the Last Valor, with all tier 5 attribute effects, and the Shrapnel Souvenir Precision mod, which when our shrapnel hits an enemy's weak point, it will automatically refill one bullet from our inventory, so we can do insane damage a lot longer. Then for our second weapon we have the D50 Wildfire pistol that also will be dealing insane damage, but it's more meant for close range fights. And lastly, for our melee weapon we will be carrying the long axe with the Shield Breaker Violent mod, which when we hit a shielded enemy it will deal 60% shrapnel damage for 1 second. So as you can guys see, this build is called a shrapnel for a reason, because we will stack it as high as physically possible, so we could do insane damage with the rest of our buffs. Then next up we have the armor, and we will be using the Falcon Mask with the Shrapnel Carnage Violent set, then the Heavy Duty Gloves with the Crit Boost Violent mod, then the Better with Fateful Strike mod, then Lone Wolf Jacket with Healing Fortification mod, then Heavy Duty Pants with the Deadshot Violent mod, and lastly the Falcon Shoes with the Covered Advanced mod. So as you can see from pretty much all of our gear choices, we try to build as much weapon damage, reload speed and magazine capacity as much as possible, because the less time we spend reloading, the more time we can do damage. One more massive thing we need to use specifically are the cradle upgrades, and on the right side you can see all of them that I use, but the most important ones is the Rapid Fire that reduces the cooldowns of healing items by -30%, and it increases healing by 15%. Then Deviation Master that will give us a massive 50% damage against deviants. Then Tactical Combo for 25% damage boost for the next 4 seconds after you reload or switch a weapon. Then Bullet Hunt, which after killing a targeted enemy with a ranged weapon, it will give you 35% shrapnel damage for the next 15 seconds. And lastly we have the Deadly Combo, which after you hit enemy's weak point with a shrapnel bullet, then it will give us 25% more damage for the next 3 seconds. Then now let's take a look at the best deviant, and there are many choices, so this is more of a personal preference. I prefer the Upper World Spawn or the Zero Purifier, because he will do a bunch of damage, attack and move automatically to the enemy's direction, and this will also give us the teleportation ability as a melee attack, so he's very useful. But then on the other hand we have the Upper World, which gives us immunity from bunch of types of damage, so this depends on your personal playstyle. If you prefer to maximize damage and be a bit more squishier, then go with the Zero Purifier. But perhaps if you keep dying or just want to have more survivability, then go with the Upper World Protection. And finally, the food choice for this build is very important, because we will focus on the shrapnel effect, so we need to buff it as much as humanly possible. And that's why we must use the canned meat to increase our character's shrapnel damage by 20%, as this will last for 1800 seconds and are very easy to make, so I recommend to get a bunch of them. And then in a quick summary, if you want to use the highest damage medium range build that has pretty much unlimited amount of ammo and possibilities to improve it even further with the better gear, then this is the build for you. And now, last but not the least, we've come to the third setup, which is the Frost Vortex build. And right now this is the highest single target DPS build in the game, with insane area of effect, all while debuffing your enemies and healing yourself in the process. So let's start with the weapon, and we are going to be using the Cam Abyss Glance with the Vortex Multiplayer mod. So our goal with this weapon is to keep beaming the enemy, and the more we do, the higher the vortex damage and buffs we will be able to achieve. Then for the second weapon we have the D50 Wildfire pistol with the Vulnerability Amplifier, the Bullseye mod. This weapon will also be able to deal insane damage, but it's more meant for close range fights, or if you're really good at shooting the enemy weak point. And lastly, for the melee weapon we have the best melee, which is the Frozen Northern Pike with the Frosty Blessing mod. This mod is really good because when we switch from our main weapon to the melee, and when all of our buffs disappear, then we will automatically get 10% HP restored. So this is pretty nice to have for extra health when you get in trouble. And by the way guys, this is the best melee weapon in the game by far. Then next up we have the armor, and we will be using the Shelter Gloves with the Elemental Overload mod, then the Shelter Hat with the Deviation Expert mod, then Frost Tactical Vest with the Flame Resonance talents, then Shelter Mask with the Lingering Frost talent, then Shelter Pants with the Precision Charge mod. And as you can see, we are using the 4-piece shelter gear, so we will get a bunch of extra buffs. And finally, for the boots, we are wearing the Lone Wolf shoes with the Covered Advanced mod. Most of our gear is built around increasing our weapon's damage, gain damage reduction, and have as much frost effect as possible, so we could do insane damage over time while having a decent survivability at the same time. One more massive thing we need to use specifically are the cradle upgrades, and on the right side you can see all of them that I use, but the most important ones is the tactical combo, that increases our weapon's damage by 25% for the next 4 seconds, but only after we switch a weapon or reload it. Then the agility, which after rolling it will give us 15% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Then bounty hunter, which after we kill an unmarked enemy, our weapon's damage increases by 25%, which will last very long for 15 seconds. And lastly, we get the master tacticianer, which after using a tactical item will give us a damage boost against bosses by 25% for the next 15 seconds. Then now let's take a look at the best deviant, and as there are many choices, so this is more of a personal preference. I really like the polar jelly, because he complements our build very well by continuously dealing frost damage to the surrounding enemies, while also increasing our damage, and if the frost vortex is formed, then it will also ice spike the enemy target. And finally, the choice of food is again up to each player. I really like the canned lunch meat because it is super easy to make and it will boost our max HP by 10%. But of course, if you want to maximize everything to the brim, then you can go with the damage increasing food or anything else depending on what you are specifically doing. So, in a quick summary, if you are looking for a powerful damage over time build who deals insane damage and with even better gear could do millions of DPS, then this is the one for you. And with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one, so take it easy, peace.